All right. Welcome, everybody. B, take it away.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls around the world, please welcome to the tee our next very special guest. He's the ace of clubs whose face you've seen sipping bubs from the Champions Cup with an acquired taste for success through his mastery of finesse. He's the smooth rock master who always avoids disaster through the Pink Floyd soundtrack in his brain. He's the other champ who lights the lamp in every division he rocks. With rock-steady nerves and mastery of every curve, his skills are on display wherever he may happen to be. Open, master, and now grandmaster title. He's the man for all ages who has his name etched into the disc golf history like it's written in the hallowed pages of the Bible. He's lithe and the lines he throws are full of grace. And his motto that's gained him the world is slow and steady wins the race. He's been mentioned in the New York Times, a disc golf superstar known wide and far. The bigger the crowd, the more he likes it loud when he smashes skins matches and final nines. He's the shogun from Sheboygan, the master of wind and wave from that cherished fave on the shores of Lake Michigan. But this cheesehead has traded the fountains and crops of the upper Midwest for Tar Heels and Smoky Mountain tops for good. And now he's holed up in a fairy tale princess kingdom in the woods. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a huge good times welcome to one of the nicest, classiest, and winningest golfers in the history of the game, Barry Schultz.
Wow. Wow, Mr. B, that was wonderful. I feel privileged to have that done in my honor. That was awesome.
That's just part of all what shakes loose during the research.
All right. Excellent.
Yeah,
So-
he's grabbing the details from far and near. Paul's always digging deep.
I almost might have to listen to that again so I can get all the Easter eggs in there. There's a bunch of them in there.
There are a bunch of Easter eggs in there, but
Right.
I mean, what comes across as the most is that you are definitely one of the nicest, one of the classiest, and one of the winningest guys in the game. And before we get further into this, Mace, why don't you just put a little framework for people who may have been living under a rock for 50 years and have no idea who Barry Schultz might be?
All right. Well, Barry's originally from Wisconsin. You spent most of your time as a youngster in Sheboygan, or was it were you other places?
That was Sheboygan.
Sheboygan.
Until I was 30.
Right. And I remember I stayed in your apartment there above your mom's house that time. So is that where you grew up, in that house there?
No. It was several. We moved around a little bit growing up in that small town, but it was always in Sheboygan.
Right on. So you were born in 70 and you turned pro in 92 at age 22. So you've been a member since 92. Your current rating is 1016. You've played
Going down.
619 career events. Well, you haven't played this year, so I mean,
Yeah.
619 events, all in pro field. 278 wins, $442,348.10 in career earnings. Career overall winning percentage 44%, 44.9% actually. An MPO, an MPO.
MP40.
No, that was an MPO. MP40, 64 events, 50 wins, 78.1% winning percentage.
Yeah.
And then since you turned 50, 6 events with 4 wins, 66.7. So you're sliding a little bit in your older years here, but there's still a lot of time to make that up.
Yes,
But
there is.
it should be noted that in MP50, you've never finished worse than second.
Is that accurate? Wow.
That's according to the PDJ.
All right, sweet. Yeah,
So that's pretty stellar.
Old guys rule.
You
Yeah,
bet
yeah.
that's right. I mean, that's what a hell of a winning percentage. Once you turn 40, it's like you were already on the crank, and then you just said, let's go to the higher gear here.
And I want to say, when I turned 40, Worlds was still together. So I played,
Right.
Open. I didn't play Masters. And those first 3 or 4 or 5 years, I played very few Masters events, if any. And I just started taking advantage of it because there's more Masters only events out there and stuff like that.
Yeah, those fields are so big
Yeah.
now too, I mean, and like that's the one thing that I'm like we were talking about earlier. I'm lucky enough to get to go by Flagstaff for Monday and Tuesday this week, and it's been on my radar for a little while. But when I came back off of the disc golf tour and everything and went back to the entertainment business, I always had, once they split the Masters, Pro Masters World Championships away from the Pro Worlds, I had a gig that conflicted, and it was just like I wasn't even trying to sell or wasn't doing anything. You know, I mean, but I did want to go and say hi to everybody. But you know, it was you know a pretty good draw to stay and go to work. You know, and
Well,
so
I think over the years we've lost that family reunion type feeling at pro/open worlds, and it's kind of transferred over to Masters Worlds, has that more so.
I
Just
would think
because,
so.
you know, lots of movers and shakers of past and present there, especially when it's in a place like Flagstaff, where the West Coast, which is so Masters heavy, always has been.
For sure.
That
Yeah,
it's
and
really
I was reading through
really
it.
going to have a connection with a wide range of great people in the sport, involved in the sport from day one, you know, and current. So it's, you know, I'm really disappointed that those two West Coast Masters events, I didn't get to either one of them, because how special the fields were and the family atmosphere would be at those two events, you know, especially the Solinsky up in Oregon, you know, so close to the California community that he made so strong. It would have had a lot more personal feel, I think, up there. And it hurt me so bad to go up there that I kind of didn't even pay attention that week of what was going on, because I just it cut me deep that I wasn't there, you know. But
Yeah, I could see that. That's, I mean,
it was on my mind all week long, you know, giving those guys great thoughts, hoping they were having a good time on the golf course and representing Tim well. But I really couldn't watch it or check out the scores or anything as it was going on.
So now,
That's
Mace,
totally-
do you want to
totally
take a break
understandable.
there in the framework, and we'll go on, or do you want to continue on?
Let's go ahead. I mean, we got a little bit to cover, so let's go ahead and carry on with this for just a little bit, because I'm gonna just go over a couple of pockets at a time. One thing I don't want to go over quick is you were the Bob West Memorial Award Sportsmanship Award winner in 2000, and obviously that's a pretty prestigious list of people that you joined with that.
Well, I think in those days, I still was a traveler, or still was a working man traveling and playing disc golf. So I was enjoying every second I was away from my home life, a little more so than once disc golf becomes your job. You don't, it's not that you don't enjoy it, but you don't stay in the moment and, you know, thoroughly enjoy every second and moment that you're out there. You pick your spots and you focus and you rest, and you do all this X, Y, and Z that you have to do for everything. But yeah, for sure.
Well, certainly, and you, I remember in one of your interviews, you talked about having built up a little bit of a nest egg, so you didn't have to depend on the weekly earnings that would depend on whether you went home or continued on down the road. And we know of a lot of guys, especially late 90s, early 2000s, who that pressure was on them. They had to make money at that event in order just to make it down with gas and lodging and food money to the next event. And when you don't have that weight on you, yeah, life is but a dream, right?
And we could
Yes.
be rude and pick 10 names out of the air.
We
I
could
mean,
be rude,
it's
but we won.
like, lucky for me, I was selling frisbees and clothing, or I'd have been one of those people too, you know. So I mean, I totally get it. So you were elected into the International Hall of Fame in 2013 and the Wisconsin Disc Golf Hall of Fame in 1999. Those two things are awesome. I mean, I've been to the Wisconsin Hall of Fame on more than one occasion. Had multiple good times at Sandy Point Resort. So
Yes. It's hard not to have a good time there.
oh my goodness, you know, that's one
I've
of those
been there with
places-
3 or 4 feet of snow on the ground and still had a fantastic time. So
Oh, I can imagine. I can imagine like that. I mean, honestly, like if you were there with 3 or 4 feet of snow on the ground in the big house, that would be awesome.
right.
You know,
Now,
or
I
any of
think
the, even the little ones.
Wisconsin gets lost a little bit because we don't quite have the big tour stops, you know, that they're looking for these days. But Wisconsin really helped build a foundation of tour golf. You know, there weren't too many tours around, and even the Wisconsin tour was only 4 events the first 2 or 3 years, you know, because there weren't that many events every weekend or every year. But you know, now there's so many, or NorCal and SoCal and the Toronto Islands part of Can-Am series. You know, there was only, you know, a dozen or so of those series going on, and now they're all over the place, everywhere.
And you know, one of the things that we'll get into later, but you know, in terms of doing the research, a lot of people only start with the PDGA, but it's hard to find information on unsanctioned events. And when you look at Wisconsin and especially Michigan being so close to us here in Ontario, those unsanctioned years where they were doing statewide tour series that just, you know, you didn't have to pay extra money to the PDGA, but you're still playing disc golf, you're still playing the sport, you're still playing against the best people in your state. And that was your incubator.
Yes.
And you know, in the same way that Timmy Gill kind of launched onto the scene, nobody heard of him because he just was playing the Sundog Summer Series, but against elite level talent and getting better. In the same way, you kind of just exploded onto the scene. It was like, where'd he come from under the snow? What boulder?
Well, I gravitated towards the tournament directors and the course designers as my friends in Wisconsin, just, you know, having like minds and stuff. And I really got to see what a course designer is trying to do to the golfer and stuff like that. So I grew up playing different sports throughout my life. So I knew the whole practice and self-exploration routine that you have to go through to be better at any sport or any profession, you know. So I just applied all those lessons I learned growing up, you know, to disc golf. And
So that I've heard you say that answer a couple times before, and I was always curious, what exact sports were you playing as a kid? Like what did you excel at that you really loved?
I thought I was going to be a baseball player growing up until I was maybe 17 or 18.
Okay.
I went to a small high school, so we had a small team that didn't have a conference. So we played some weird things and stuff. And I got scouted once, and you know, I think we won 5-3 against an all-star team, and I had a couple of hits and pitched the whole game and had great time, and they weren't interested in me at all. So I get it, whatever. And I went to college and tried pitching in college, and I had shoulder issues, torn rotator cuffs, and so I couldn't really play anymore. I played softball, but as a teenager, you know, I bowled quite a bit. I thought I might be a professional bowler as well. Didn't really play soccer, but basketball I play a lot of. You know, up in Wisconsin, you play darts, you know, stuff like that, you know.
Bar games. Don't
Yes,
forget the bar games.
bar games, you know. So it's, you know, the land of the brat fry and the bar, you know. You know, we played baseball with one or two people up against the wall, you know, stuff like that, you know. So we did whatever we could. I drew all kinds of batters boxes against the garages we lived at and stuff like that, and threw against, you know, one of the longer houses that we lived at in my teenage years was right next to a park. It had a baseball diamond, tennis courts, basketball, and all kinds of swing sets and stuff. So I was just out there all day, all night. So just really active. And I tried to play as many sports growing up as I could. I had older brothers and older sisters, so they were kind of out of the house early. So I kind of just gravitated to the team sports and enjoyed, you know, living life through sport without having to live life. You know, learn a lot through, you know, about life through sport, and seeing the ups and downs and the finish lines and stuff like that you don't have to experience in life, but still get that knowledge to help you out throughout, you know, the rest of your life.
Well, I think definitely the best students are the one that can draw the lessons from all types of different, you know, teachers.
Disc golf teaches you life lessons, and life teaches you disc golf lessons, you know.
That's a great one. And so one of the things, if we might not get to it in this interview, but one of the things I really love is your clinics. I watched a couple of your clinics, and the way that you kind of format it and you put it into understandable language for your audience. And so a lot of it is just, I mean, it first comes from the idea of having fun, but
Right.
You derived a lot of your lessons on how to approach the game from your early contact with sports. And I think that's just a life lesson that is just a great. So let's just continue with this origin story. This is a
Sure.
natural segue. It's 1979, maybe 1980. Frisbee is in the zeitgeist. It's across the land. It's in convenience stores in every little small town. You can turn on the Rose Bowl parade and see Frisbee. And so your origin story is you're stuck. Your older brother is stuck with you. Hey, he's got to babysit you, and his buddies come to the house and say, "Come on, let's go play Frisbee golf." And he says, "I can't. I'm watching Junior." And they say, "Come on, bring him with." Now, was that at Volrath Park that you guys went to?
That was at Volrath Park. That was not my first introduction. That was my first play. You know, at Volrath Park, they have a man-made bowl. It's kind of horseshoe-shaped bowl that they have the high school commencement ceremonies at every year for the two main high schools, North and South in Sheboygan.
I remember that.
And so we would see that, and you know, we would go down there every year. My brothers graduated like in 80 or 81, 82, something like that. So we would go down there, and before that, even if we weren't graduating, we have family or friends that were graduating. You go down there and you just watch people graduate, right? See the people get their diploma, put their tassel over. But in the background was this old park that used to be a zoo, and then was one of the first disc golf courses, Frisbee golf courses in Wisconsin. And it began 4x4 full posts with chicken wire circle on the ground.
Oh,
Oh.
nice.
I saw
And
people
so you
playing
had to
that.
be in the chicken wire?
Saw people playing that, yes, in the distance, and then the next year we got there and they had baskets. And then they also had, like, the weekend before the high school commencement, they had the Wisconsin State overalls. So they had guts, they had frisbee dogs, they had freestyle, they had MTA, then they had disc golf, of course. So we got to see it a couple times, and then I actually got to go down there and play it, and was, hooked. It was only, a mile and a half from the house. So as I got older, I rode the bike down there, put the frisbees in the spokes of the bike, rode down there. When it got dark, ride back home, things that kids
In
just
the
don't do
spokes of
anymore,
the bike?
Yeah,
That's
I rode the
amazing.
bike down there, 11, 12, 13, 14 years old, and go down there and spend the day and come back, whatever.
Well, and
you know,
it's, I mean, it's not a monster course, but it's a
No,
beautiful park. And
yeah.
there's some holes that will test you there. And it's right on the lake. It's right on Lake Michigan.
Only two holes over 300 feet, but it's not easy. It's
No,
simple, but old school golf, but it's not easy. And unfortunately, this last year they lost the land on the lake. The water department that was next door to it confiscated the land, so to speak, and they're building more water utility stuff there. So they lost about anywhere from 3 to 6 holes they're losing, or have already lost.
that's
And
too bad.
it's not going to be the same, but it'll always be there, I think, as far as I know. It's got that connection, that history there, that I think the city will always try and have a golf course there. But the Pickle Memorial is no longer there anymore. The Pickle Memorial was after my course pro. In my teenage years, he ran the events and sold discs and made sure everybody, didn't steal your frisbee as you were out there playing, and made sure everything was clean and stuff. And he passed in '86 when I was 16, and we, didn't know what to do, who was going to sell discs, who was going to run events and stuff. So, I ran a league on Saturdays, and another buddy helped running some leagues, and we ran a memorial for him. And then I started running a sanctioned memorial for him and stuff. So, it's good. We kept his attitude and his personality out there. He was tell it like it is kind of guy. He was blunt and maybe didn't have friends all over the place because of that, but he liked to have fun and made sure everybody had a good time as well. So, it's a unique event, usually exterior and stuff. So, and back in those days, there was no AM or pro. It was just men's and women's and juniors, and that's it. So
Oh, really?
after I won a couple of juniors tournaments, they're like, okay, you can't play junior anymore. You got to play with the men. Then it took me like a year and a half or 2 years to win a men's tournament. And I got a plaque from '86 and I was 16. My first men's win was like,
That's
yes,
amazing.
finally. I can't recall how long. It was at least one season that it took me to break through. But after
Well,
winning, most tournaments as a junior, I was like, okay, this is gonna be a little harder.
I think it speaks amazingly to your character that as a 16-year-old, most 16, 17-year-olds, they could barely tie their shoelaces, but you took upon yourself basically the duties of the course pro, course promoter, the sport promoter, and at the same time, you're trying to figure out how to be better as well. You just won kind of your first Wisconsin level event, and I don't
Yeah,
even
and most
know.
of those events were unsanctioned, like you said, back
Yeah.
then. It was
Did you
rare to
even
have a sanctioned event.
did you even know about the PDGA at those times?
I did. I paid $5 like 2 or 3 times.
Okay.
So I could have a lower number. Not that a number means that much, these days, but I could have
Well,
had.
I mean, a 4-digit number compared to a 6-digit number kind of means
Yeah,
more.
I might have been in the 4,000 range if I would have done it the first time. But as a
Okay.
kid, do I want to pay $5? Do I want to pay $35? It was an obvious, using my paper route money to sign up and play events. I was going to pay the $5.
Yeah, I have a paper route too one day.
So the last question I want to ask you about just the origin story, one in those rare times where we say, look, if we're traveling somewhere and we look out into the distance and we wonder what our lives would have been like if you hadn't have ever found about disc golf. What you mentioned bowling. Do you think bowling would have been a viable if you never heard about the game of disc golf?
I think so. When I was in my prime, 20, 21, 22 as a bowler, maybe even 19 or so, I did some junior circuiting in the winters, because you got nothing else to do, up there. But the thing that really killed me was there was so much smoking going on and so much drinking
Oh,
going on during the tournaments that I couldn't handle it. I felt drunk and hungover myself, even though I wasn't doing any of that, and it just dealing with drunk people while I was trying to compete was not what I wanted to do. So I got out, and then three or 4 years after I got out, so to speak, they kind of changed all those rules. You don't smoke or drink anymore during leagues, stuff like that. And those big events, you can't do that anymore. And bowling houses are now smoke free and stuff like that. It's a lot different than it was. If I would have waited that out, I maybe could have been, but at the same time, bowling hasn't gotten any bigger than it was in the 80s and 90s.
It's kind of just stayed where it
About
was.
the same.
And
they're
you
not
know what?
playing for that much more money than they were back then.
Right.
So we're almost playing for as much money as they are now. So we should take them over in a couple of years. So it's,
And that's always been the knock. Like, hey, you could be a professional bowler and make more money than the disc golf tour. If
Not
we
anymore.
turn that
not
corner,
anymore. You got that right. You got that right.
Well,
Yeah.
and that I remember that as a kid too. I wasn't as much as an avid a bowler, and I'd only did a league once. But then video games came out, so I was always going to the bowling alley and playing video games and stuff.
There you go.
But like, there's two places on the earth that were like absolutely the worst, and there's one place worse than the bowling alley: bingo halls. In terms of like smoking indoors,
Yes,
and even like
yes.
I played a bunch of poker. Last time I encountered a nasty bingo hall, I played a bunch of poker one time. A few times, I should say, at Milwaukee at Potawatomi, when I was hanging out with Raffin Golfer, and you had to walk through the bingo hall to get to the poker room, and you never smoke in the poker room, but you almost
Smelled like
never
smoking
see a
poker room
bingo
'cause you
hall
walk
where
through
they
it.
don't
Yeah,
smoke,
yeah.
and like this one was divided at an angle. It was a square, and I mean, it you just walking by, going to the bathroom, it was just gross. I mean, that's one thing. There's K1 is now in a bowling alley here in Arlington, and it was the closest one to my house. It was the first bowling alley in the state of Texas that banned smoking, and they were all, "Oh, this is never going to fly," and now it's completely flipped.
Right. Well, I really enjoyed as a junior that like the bowling, and then I gave lessons to juniors and stuff like that to give back. I got free practice. At the bowling
Nice.
lanes, if I did lessons for the juniors at their leagues and stuff, and really enjoyed the hell out of that. And almost any sporting lesson that you're trying to give, you could almost give it to transfer it over to disc golf. So that's one thing that I've really learned. If I'm giving a disc golf lesson and I'm struggling on the ball golf course, I'll think about my disc golf lesson along those same things, and I can teach myself in the ball golf world. It's so weird how a golf lesson is a golf lesson. It don't matter what it is: posture, grip pressure, alignment, uphill, downhill lies. It all applies word for word. So
Routine.
it's neat. Yeah. Routine. Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, that applies from all sports too. I mean, like
for sure.
free throws in basketball. I mean,
Yeah,
that's where I applied that from basketball to my putting.
I think of putting as around the world for basketball.
Yeah. That's
You got yourself 8 or 10 stations, and you're doing different things, and you're playing outdoors. So you got a little bit of wind or a little bit of sun, so you got to change things up. It's not the same every single time, So yeah, for sure.
Well, so there's been a lot of mention, like we kind of wrapping up the origin there, and a little bit of the framework too. But there's been some mention of your early heroes, but there's not been any names, and I'm pretty sure I know at least 2 of them. But let's hear it. Come on, who are your early heroes from Wisconsin, especially from Wisconsin? Your early mentors and heroes.
The first one that I actually kind of purposely sought out and tried to have them be my mentor, and they embraced the role and said, "Yes, I'd love to be your mentor," kind of thing, was Duster Don Hoffman.
I knew that was who you were going to say.
He was the right age as far as a father figure for me. I don't know my father, never did, so I was looking for that at a young age. So it was great that he was there for that. And then in the disc golf community, a course designer, a sport promoter, an event runner, I could learn from him just by being around him. Didn't even have to talk to him, just listen to him and be around him and soak up so many things. And then fantastic guy. If he's not your friend, it's only because you haven't met him yet. He's one of those guys.
Yeah, that's
anybody and everybody. So and then I don't really have any specific sports people that help me in the sporting world. I just draw from everybody, from coaches that I've had, from players that I played with, players on TV that I watched, Paul Molitor and Robin Yount, Paul Presley, Cecil Cooper, just Wisconsin old school sporting guys. I like the way they handle themselves on the field.
right.
But Duster was the first one that really, he gave me a book a couple of times to help with growing as a mental growing your mental strength, and being a better mental golfer out there. He's really the only one that I really sought that specific relationship for. Everything else just kind of happens as part of a friendship, as part of a relationship. You know, Levon Wolf is one of those guys that you can talk to anything about, you
Yeah,
know,
for sure.
you know, and then fellow players, of course, Kenny, you know, but Stokely, Mike Randolph, you know, old school guys like that, you know, that you get to see a couple times a year, you know, because we only saw these guys 3 or 4 or 5 times a year, depending on where they live, you know, or only once a year at Worlds or something like that, you know, so it's hard to find that in the disc golf world for sure.
Well, you know, and speaking of what you just said there about only seeing guys certain times of the year or a certain number of times of the year, that was one of the things for me that stood out in the early days when I first started playing at Veterans here in Arlington. Was the VPO was always what they focused their efforts on, and I realized, I think that clicked for me, where I was like, wow, this is for real. This isn't just some bullshit with a bunch of dudes, you know, hanging out in the parking lot at the park, you know, every Sunday morning and stuff.
Selling this
When-
out their trunk and writing
Yeah.
on notepads
When-
and stuff. We're, you know, way beyond that.
when
Yeah.
you and Jeff
Even in
Harper
those
showed
days.
up, when Jeff Harper came from Iowa and you came from Wisconsin to play, like, probably it might not have been the first one that I was aware of, but it was certainly the second one, like maybe 93 or 94. 94 was the one that I definitely played in. I think I was just spectating and just figuring it out that all of us could get involved in 93. But then, like, I saw, oh, Jeff Harper came from Iowa, Barry Schultz came from Wisconsin. I was like, wow, this has got something, you know, this isn't just a
Well,
bunch of bullshit, you know?
a cool little story that got me to the Veterans Park Open. My buddy and I, Paul Nitch,
Yeah,
from
remember
Wisconsin,
Paul?
we kind of were the course pros in Sheboygan and ran events and stuff like that and became doubles partners. We went to Round Rock Doubles, National Doubles Championships, a couple times in the early 90s, mid 90s, and met various people, you know, staying in the Austin area. And one of the people that we met down there was Doug Williams and Tim Gendel. And we got to play a couple rounds with them over the years. And the first round we played with them, we were playing Round Rock course. I don't know if you know it, but you know it obviously. But you know,
Oh,
people
yeah.
there. We're playing the 1,000-footer.
Old Settlers.
Cross the creek and you turn around, you come back 1,000-footer, you throw it 8 times as hard as you can, whatever it was back then. Anyway, we're playing that hole, and Tim and Doug are throwing, and Tim throws his shot, good shot down there. Doug goes up there and he foot faults 2 or 3 feet away from his disc, throws a shot, good shot. I called him on it. My partner seconded it, and Tim was like, yeah, he did. So Doug wasn't happy, as Doug can kind of be if you push him. Doug,
Sluggo.
you know, he likes pressing buttons, but I'd say he doesn't always like his buttons being pressed, you know. But he took offense to that a little bit. He got a little feisty and threw a shot, and guess what? He threw a shot that landed on top of the disc that he threw on the foot fault shot. So it was like, we laughed about it because the disc was touching. I mean, there's like, how can you do that 350 or 400 feet away? You know, he's probably through a Viper, so it may not have been 400, you know, but back in those days. So it's, how can you do that? So we laughed about it. We became good friends. And I think maybe the second time we played down there, they're like, you got to come to Arlington and play with us in the fall, dude. It's like, well, I'm not, you know, play our tournament. It's like, well, I'm not coming down in the summer. I hate Texas heat. Like, oh, it's in the fall,
No.
you know, right before Thanksgiving, you know, blah, 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 blah. So he talked me, I flew down, and Doug picked me up, and I stayed with him. And then when Doug moved away, he went to Mississippi for a job and took his family. Then Tim kind of took me under his wing, and I stayed with Tim every time I went down there.
Nice.
Great. You know, and again, I gravitated towards people that helped with the course, that helped design the course, helped work with the course, helped improve the course, helped run events and stuff. So, you know, the great people that got me connected to that event specifically. And then that event specifically, having to take on Stokely on very difficult, very long, challenging non-Wisconsin golf, it
Yeah.
really helped me grow as a golfer. And
Yeah.
then when I broke through and beat Stokely there, after thinking there's no way I can beat this guy, he can go over the top everywhere he wants to out here. You know, it doesn't matter. He can just throw over the top. He doesn't have to go down the tunnel. And I still was able to beat him there. I'm like, okay, I might be onto something here. So
Well,
You
that's
know what,
definitely
I had a similar story with Matt Kerner and Bob Wiggersma. I played with them. Jerry Gotcher and I played with them at Round Rock in doubles.
Sure.
And then all of a sudden in the fall, they were like, hey, you talked it up so much. I think, and they stopped on the way because they drove down. So they stopped
Okay.
on the way back and played it. And then they were brewing, it was brewing the whole year. And then they showed up at Oktober Frizz, and they showed up
Excellent,
at
excellent.
VPO as well. And it's, it's great how those stories work out, how you,
It took me a couple of years to make the Oklahoma stop beforehand. I was flying down the DFW instead of driving all that time. So I finally
yeah.
hit the bullet and was like, I gotta go stay down here for 2 or 3 weeks.
And
instead
then
of just
hitting
going
Tulsa
down.
on top of that,
Yeah,
that
right,
really
right.
puts a cap on the trip too.
Yes, for sure.
Well, we're gonna look a little bit more about especially Veterans Park, and that's a real turning point for you in your professional career. But I want to just bring it back to the beginning of your professional career, 1992. You enter I know you've been playing Wisconsin unsanctioned state events, but according to the PDGA official note of record, your first official PDGA event, you and Paul Nitsch traveled to Central Iowa for a doubles tournament. You take fourth out of 22nd. And then your second event is the Illinois State Championship. So your first two PDJ events are out of state, and you have to
Yes.
travel somewhat to that.
Yes.
And I just want to ask you, I don't think, maybe unfortunately the name Paul Nitsch might be overlooked in the tides of history, but at the time, you two were the young gunslingers from the shores of Lake Michigan. So tell me what it's like traveling with Paul Nitsch to your first tournament, and that what was it the two of you driving together to Central Iowa?
Yes, yes. We became travel buddies a little bit. He went to school up northwest Wisconsin, and I would visit him once in a while. We'd play some golf in the Minneapolis Twin Cities, so we got a connection there. But there was no sneaking up on anybody when I had Paul with me. He was taller than me. He was stronger than me. He was prettier than me. He had the aura. I mean, there was no sneaking up, and we weren't going to be able to shark anybody on the golf course doing it. I could sneak by somebody if you weren't paying attention, but Paul wasn't going to sneak by anybody at
Yeah,
all.
but that was only in the early 90s, dude. I
Yes.
mean, by the
Yeah.
time it got to the middle 90s, you weren't sneaking by anybody either.
No. But I mean, just walking into the average, golf course, you were going to look at Paul and say, "Oh boy, stay away from him." Cash game. But he was kind of the anti-Barry as far as personality goes. Wise, I was a little more rowdy in my younger days, and he was a little more calmer. Whatever, take it as it goes.
Oh,
And then as we got better, I kind of got quiet, and he kept, whatever goes. He didn't have any sports background, so he didn't quite have that killer attitude that you have in sports a lot of times. But I always thought he was better physically gifted than I was. He just didn't have the mental makeup that I had to break through some walls, and he was okay with whatever happened. And that's what made Paul. But as far as being the best golfer he could be, I don't think he quite served him as well as it could have.
That's interesting.
But I always enjoyed watching him golf. He was slow and smooth. You wouldn't pick up bad habits by watching him. I thought he was the perfect partner. If you felt like you wanted to go first or second, he would be okay with it and let you do it. Or, like I said, having him as a partner never put me in a bad position as far as attitude or, bad energy or, he threw some bad shots, but not by watching him. Some people you kind of don't even want to watch your best friend throw a shot once in a while because you don't want him, the Sergio, by not pulling the trigger forever, or whatever the case is, Fred Flintstone, tippy toes kind of thing,
Right.
But we all have our little quirks and stuff. But for me, he was my perfect partner, and I was disappointed as a golfer that he met his match in his personal life and kind of stepped away from the golf world, but so very happy for him that he found that, and two grown sons now and living his life.
Are you still friends?
We digitally talk a few times a year. I usually send him a birthday box, a disc or something like that, and stuff. And the couple times I've been up to Wisconsin, we try and make a point that he comes out for a league at Dretzka or something like that, when I'm out there. So still keep in touch.
Nice.
It is definitely one of those things where, and you said this in one of your interviews, where you're born with the family. You can't choose that family. With the Frisbee family, you can choose the people that you choose to be family with. And when people leave the game, you feel like you've lost a family member. And so if you still have some kind of dim connection with that person, even if it's just league, or if you can just sit down and chop it up over a beer or whatever, then it doesn't feel like we've lost someone forever from the fold.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
So and I just want to skip ahead. 1993, that's your first cash. You go to the warm-up for the Worlds in Nashville. And
The first meeting of Stokely at that event.
I was about to ask, is that
Yeah,
the first
yeah.
time you met Stokely? So Stokely wins by 16 strokes. And so he just shows you absolutely what kind of powerhouse he is at that time. He entered your life like he entered most of our lives, like a human dynamo, like the Tasmanian devil in a lot of senses. Tell us your first impressions and your lasting impressions of Scott.
Well, that first event I played with him was somebody's backyard course. So it wasn't your typical, it was a deuce or die, but it was tricky little thing. And he was throwing, like I said, over the top, creative, weird shots, and just seeing the joy that he had playing golf, regardless whether he was throwing good shots or bad shots, is really attractive. You want to be around somebody that has that much fun doing anything, so I always thought he was a 10-year-old in a man's body, and enjoying it.
That's a really fair assessment.
And enjoying every minute of it, and it's absolutely fantastic.
You know what? We got him on in a few weeks, and I'm looking forward to asking him what he thinks of that assessment, because knowing him like I do, I mean, I think he's going to have a blast with that assessment alone.
Yes,
let alone the whole rest of the show. I mean,
we all need a little more 10-year-old selves to be present instead of our 40 or 50-year-old selves out there.
Believe me, I'm leaning towards 10.
Yeah, right. Right. But just seeing what's possible with the golf discs, some of the stuff I didn't know was possible. I rolled a disc before I met Scott, but I didn't over the top big air roll the disc before. Before Scott.
Man, and some of his action, just like his whole that scoot in his step. We're not on the 360, but on the run up, the straight run up, and that scoot that he has in there, and just like, and the turn and the rotation, and then the up and over. Just I don't know that anybody. Well, I guess the young guys are all capable of that kind of stuff now, but not very many people in our era were.
Well, I think Stokely perfectly personifies what the new age ball golfer is if he starts young. When they teach a ball golfer young, it's swing as hard as you can, and we'll control it, and we'll get a flight of it as you go. And that's Scott would throw as hard as he could, and just change the discs, slower discs, but he used that to his advantage. He wasn't doing it silly or with whimsical, notions. He did it with purpose. And I just, I learned as a sporting person, you learn by watching somebody that's really good at what they do, no matter if you play that sport or not. And I just soaked up, what I could from Scott. And then, he came back in our lives a few years ago, and when he obviously was in need, I'm like, come on, brother, I'm at a place that brought me in, when I was in need. So I'm going to do the same to you. You need to come here if it's what you need to do. So I was so glad that he got back into the sport, and the sport is ready for a character like him, but I'm happy that he's back in so that people get to know him instead of get to know the character of him, if that makes any sense. People always knew that name and knew that he was a character, but they don't really know him deeply and know that he was a professional golfer just as much as he was a professional character all those years.
And like you said too, he'd take care of people and he'd help me. Like when I started wandering, and he was the only person for a long time that made any money selling disc wrap discs, and he was killing it on his clinics and doing his doubles events. And that's where I started Mace Man doubles. I sat in his house in Fort Collins. He goes, "Get with it. I'm about to quit. This is, you should take it on and just roll with it and run with it." And he, every time I've ever called him with any questions at all, he would like, "Oh yeah, blah, 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 blah," and just like anybody else.
He's sneaky smart. He's got a great entrepreneurial mind. He kind of plays off that 10-year-old energy a little bit once in a while, but he is sneaky smart, man. It shows with his experience. He's done a lot of good things. Those good things may not have lasted 10 or 20 years, but he's done a lot of good things in his life, business wise and stuff. So, it's great to see him back again.
Well, certainly from I remember the 98 Triple Crown, which you were at, and we'll kind of go over a little bit of that. But I remember walking on Melbourne, the course at Melbourne, and there was you had to cross a fairway at one point. I can't remember the holes. It was like 4 and 16 or whatever. And I was walking underneath his throw, and it was about 40 feet above me in the air, and I heard it whistling.
Yeah.
Like it was this close to breaking the sound barrier. That's how fast it was moving. We never, I mean, he, like you say, he was a professional level character as well as professional level player, and just exactly what the sport needed at that time for sure, and certainly what the sport needs now, of course.
Well, he grew up. I mean, he grew up with this. He was one of the test pilots
Yeah.
of the early days. Him and Leva, Sam Ferrens. There's a Valencia, uh, Arroyo. I mean,
You need to know what those discs do at high speeds, and there's not too many people that can throw at high speed
and
consistently.
those guys. They were part of that whole. Oh well, that Eagle. I mean, we just had Harold on last week, and we were talking about that, but we didn't get as far as I would like, and we're going to again, and just talk about. We started with the Eagle and how the money came together and how the first disc was popped out. And we're going to join him. We're going to join back up with him on the Monday before Monday qualifying and
Nice.
carry on deeper. And so there's definitely, over the next few weeks, I'm going to be looking for some other questions to ask along that line. But that's, one of those things where you got to look at guys like that, and Leva, Leva was the hot dog around here when I started. And so like I saw Leva, I saw Sammy, I saw Mikey Sayer, Matt Frank, and all those guys. And I was like, wow, we got badasses. But again, like I said, Jeff Harper shows up, you show up, and then a couple of years later, the champ shows up, and all these people, and those guys, Mike Sayer and Ken Clymer were the only people under par that whole weekend on that windy weekend. And we all got food poisoning from the pizza on Saturday night and stuff too. And I mean, I was like, holy shit, this is for real. This isn't just. This isn't just a bunch of stupid ass frisbees on the wall at the head shop. You know what I mean?
Well, it kind of was, but yeah.
Well, I mean, it's that.
It can be more than one thing at the same time.
Yeah, there you go.
It's that for sure. For sure.
So before we leave your early years, just to cut two more things I just wanted to ask you about. First of all, your first travel to the world, Huntsville, Alabama, 1993. You go down there, and I believe you cashed to 32nd out of 136. So talk to us. This is your 23 at the time. You're working in the plastics factory, I believe.
Yep, sure am.
And you're working in the week, so your weekends are devoted to being happy, carefree. This is your first Worlds. What do you think?
Well, I was really chomping at the bit because the year before that in Michigan, I got my invite like 10 days before the event. And working in a factory,
no
you're
way.
not going to get a week off if you ask, a week ahead of time. And it's not going to happen. So I couldn't go. So Paul went without me, and he had a great time in Michigan, and was like raving about how great it is. And, so the fly mart. So, I made sure that, even before I got my invite, I think I asked off for work because I was going to go if I didn't get invited. Back then we weren't sure how that all worked, so but I got off, we went down there, and it was absolutely fantastic time. I soaked up everything I could. I probably spent way more than I wanted to at the Fly Mart, but I came home with like 30 or 40 great discs, frisbees that I brought home and probably made money on or kept and used for years and years and years. So that was, and then getting to meet guys like Levon Wolf, that Dean Tannick, getting to see, Kenny out there performing and stuff. And I got to meet Bomberico, was one of my favorite meets that week. Got to play a couple of rounds with him. That was fantastic. So it definitely felt like we belonged there, and we needed to keep going back. So yeah, it was fantastic. I knew I was going to keep going back as much as I could.
The last thing, just to button this up, 1994. This is your third year on the Pro Tour. You get your first win, and it's in state at the Madison City Open, Mad City Open in Madison, Wisconsin. You win by 7 strokes. You've already won unsanctioned events in Wisconsin before, but this is now. Does it feel like it's a bit of a bigger time because it's a PDGA tournament?
It does. I think I was proud that somebody from Wisconsin won our big event. You know, in the past, you know, we had had one or two big events a year, and it seems like somebody else, Bob Ryan, Alex Bingham, you know, Phil Arthur, somebody else was winning the big Wisconsin event. And I wanted to do Wisconsin proud, and it felt like, you know, it wasn't going to keep happening where somebody else was going to win our Wisconsin event anymore. You know, I don't know why I felt that way, but I felt very cheeseheady instead of very very mean, if that makes any sense.
love
Well,
it.
you
I
know,
love it.
it really turned into be a hot. I mean, that was kind of the start when it really started really getting hot up there too. I mean, I remember when I was touring, there were several years where I played 6 events in Texas and 6 events in Wisconsin, and you know, it really a lot of that had to do with the heat. And
Yes.
I think I also played at least 5 events in Michigan in the same time frame too. And so that, but you know, that was really starting to come up. And like when I started going up there in '99 and 2000 and 2001, I mean, things were rolling. Things were,
Well, you
you know,
know, the course designers were really getting into a groove as far as uh, talking parks departments into courses in good parks. We had saved several not so good parks in the state, and we got a good enough reputation where they were starting to give us some good parks to put golf courses in. And then once you get the golf courses, then the events follow. You know, so we were in a good spot. We had, you know, your basic 4 or 5 or 6 state people that were doing the course designing and doing a great job, making them tournament ready right when they were open and stuff. So, and we had, you know, great people, you know, Randy Shukar, and others that can really help, you know, raise great tournament staff and tournament directors. They really did a great job.
man,
It's
Randy.
interesting how, sorry, I was just going to say, it's interesting 1998 is such a watershed year for you personally, but also that's the year that Appleton hosted the Am Worlds. And that was,
We
I mean,
tried for the year before and got disappointed that I forget who got it instead of us, but it gave us an
oh,
extra year. It was the best thing that ever happened to us because it gave us an extra year to get ready. So,
I think that was in Michigan. Where was it? I can't
Grand
remember the
Rapids.
Grand Rapids in
but
Michigan.
you know, Duster and I had just come home from Worlds in North Carolina, and they kept saying
Charlotte.
all week long, best worlds ever was their chant and their mantra, best worlds ever. And we're like, we can do this kind of thing back home. We can do this kind of thing back home. We will do this thing back home. And we definitely were thankful we had that extra year to get the courses ready. And I think as a team, we broke a lot of barriers for world championships as far as having digital coverage every day, you know, and stuff like that. We really helped the PDGA try things out and get better from that standpoint as well for their years to come. We really had great crews that were really doing strange and wonderful things. And I kind of sacrificed maybe a month or 2 of my season that year, but it paid me back in so many ways that I would not have changed that for forever. You know, I was disappointed with my finish in Cincinnati that year because it was right after Land Worlds. I didn't get a lot of practice and stuff, but you know, I wouldn't have changed it for the Worlds. I mean, Double G and his family coming up there and spending all that time, and so many people. Schwebby was up there, Billy Crump was up there. You know, so many people came from out of state that are my friends now that I have connection with, and you know, we did some great things up there as a team. And I'm so very proud that we took that leap. You know, again, I was a young guy and I did everything I could. Competition, I think my official title was competition director for that weekend. And I don't even know if that title or that position is really around too much anymore. I think Jeff Jacqua held that position at the PDGA, but I think his position has changed. But I think it's a very important position. You got to make sure that the field is level and fair for everybody, or for as many people as you can. You know, so it gave me a real great insight of what happens at big events as well. So as a player, you know, I don't just go and complain to the tournament director about what I see out there. I thank him and support him as much as I can as well. You know, because there's a lot of work that goes behind any event, much less a world-class event. So
Well, let's before we get to we got so many different ways we could attack this whole
Right.
story, but
And it's already 8:50.
it's already 8:50 and we're only the first third of the way. We're not even the first third of the way through the script. But one of the things we always want to ask people is this, it's a small little question, small little story. Sometimes it's very interesting, but everybody's got a unique path to the game, but also to their PDGA number. So
Yeah. So what prompted you to get your number? How long? I mean, how long did you play? I know that first event was a pro event, but did you have that number already at that point, or did
I
you?
did not have that number. Like I said, as a kid, a teenager, I paid $5 probably 3 or 4 times. I don't know if that was over a 1 year or 2 year or 3 year period, but I paid $5 a couple times just because I didn't want to pay the extra 35. But then when I was, I saw that, hey, I might play more than one event a year or play every year, or I might have even had a sponsor that says they'll help me pay for that fee or something like that. I don't even know exactly how it went down, but I got my number and Paul got his number shortly after I did. But yeah, it was at the time, didn't really know much about the number, why we have a number or what's going on, and then after a couple of events, I saw some of the old guys, the guys that were winning and, guys that seemed to know what they were doing had their number on the back of their disc. So I started doing that, 6840 on the back of my disc, but we didn't have the internet to look up who was that number and to contact them anyway.
right.
But we just, I always put my phone number on there. So, it was kind of weird.
So 6840, you got that when you joined the PDGA in 1992?
Yes.
We're all pretty close to each other. I joined in
92.
early 93 and I'm 7224. So
And
you
I
can
was
see,
I was late 93 at 7477. So we're all within like 800 of one another.
I mean, now we go through 800 numbers in a day with the
Right.
PDGA,
Update.
exponential growth.
Right.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So
It's fantastic. It's awesome.
it's pretty cool having a 4-digit number, especially, a mid 4-digit number. And you were one of the only people you're the only person in this conversation who can brag about having a low number and show the proof that you're worth it. Mason and I, we have a lot of PDGA
Hey,
records.
you spent
where
time playing golf back in those days and put up with everything we had to put up with. You're worth it. You're worth that 4-digit number, man.
Okay, so we're just going to jump into a little bit of a rapid fire here. Don't think about it too long, but a couple of kind of off-kilter questions. For you, the typical questions could be, what's your favorite course? What's your favorite disc? But I'm going to ask you, what's your favorite tournament win?
My favorite tournament win. I always thought that it would be my first Worlds. When you're coming up and you win a couple events, I can't wait to win my first Worlds. And not that it's, that Flagstaff wasn't anything special. It was extremely special. My mom was there, my nephew was there, it had great things there. I mean, it was a wonderful week, great story, so to speak. And then for the longest time, I thought it was going to be my World Games gold medal win in Japan. Just playing for your nation is a quite unique feeling that I didn't know was going to hit me until I heard the national anthem being played after the ceremony. It was like, wow, okay, it does mean a little bit more. But having said that, I will have to say that it is the 2001 USDGC, my first USDGC win, my first major win, because I just come back from Japan and won that gold medal, and I had played the course before at Winthrop Gold Arena, and I knew what I was getting into. I basically played the course on the open practice field hundreds of times. This is my tee shot on 1. This is my tee shot on 2. This is my second shot on 2. This is my tee shot on 3. This is my, blah, blah, blah. I played the course on the open practice field hundreds of times leading up to that. And putting that much focus and energy into something can be scary. It can be a double-edged sword. It can work in your favor and it can definitely work against you if things aren't going well early on. But to have that much focus and that much determination, and to have it actually finish with a win was fantastic. And I've tried giving other events that type of focus and that type of determination, and I don't think I've ever been able to reach that again, and it haven't had that payoff when I did try. But just going through the process that I did, and I think the small numbers at the World Games, I didn't want people to think that was a fluke because there's only 6 countries there. Kenny wasn't there, Stokely wasn't there, blah, 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 blah. I wanted to back that up with another win, showing that that was not a fluke. That was an important win as well. So, I feel like I had momentum. I didn't want to lose it. That to me is my favorite win, the most important win. I remember that feeling the most, getting that trophy and raising that with the fireworks in the background. It was
those are all valid, super valid. And like one of my personal highlights of all of disc golf was getting to hold that medal and getting to hold Juliana's medal too, and just like, but the other thing too that I was going to say that stood up from what you just said was, I remember when you accepted that at your acceptance speech in your first USDGC, and you told those guys, hey, if you're waiting for the course to open and you're going out there and playing another round, you have totally missed it. You're not supposed to have enough energy to go back out there and hit another lap. You're supposed to leave it all out there on that first go round. And if that's not what you've done, then you need to reevaluate. And I've thought about that a lot over the years. And I think that's very, very true and valid.
Well, when you give yourself up to the process, you'll be surprised at the outcomes once in a while.
Absolutely.
As long as you've gone through the right steps, have chosen the right process, you will reach greater heights than you ever thought if you can stick to the process.
So another favorite. What's your favorite tournament meal? Like nighttime, lunchtime, breakfast? I mean, what are the things that you try to do on those 3 things? I
make sure I eat breakfast. I'm a big breakfast person. I have to eat, pretty quickly when I get up in the mornings.
Me too.
To help my energy level the first half of the day. So I just make sure I eat something of significance. Oatmeal or a sandwich or cereal or all kinds of different things, but fruit and everything for breakfast. Tournament days, back in the day, it was play around, have a lunch break, play another round. We don't do that much anymore, but I always felt that picking the right lunch is key, from an energy standpoint and
For
stuff
sure.
like that. So I always kept it simple with sandwiches and stuff like that. Nothing to get me too greasy or too wired or too dead, stuff like that. Nighttime, the easy answer is Italian, either pasta or pizza. It's easy to make something halfway decent and give you some energy. And I'm definitely a pizza guy. I could have pizza every day of the week because
Yeah, even bad.
there's 100 different kinds of pizza. Some people don't think that way, but you can make pizza many different ways. But yeah, I just, as I get older, I think I'm probably going a little more healthy. But I just want to make sure that I'm not starving or hungry, really lacking for food at any point during a tournament week or weekend. That's when your body lacks energy the next day or the next couple hours. You have to make sure you're well fed. Just know your schedule. When are you gonna be able to eat again? If you're not gonna be able to eat for 5 hours, then bring snacks. Know your body, know yourself. I think that's when I made leaps and strides too, is knowing myself, knowing what works for me, what doesn't work for me, as far as energy level, as far as food, as far as practice goes. What you need to do to get yourself ready to start the tournament. Getting to know yourself, you can make leaps and bounds. Without getting better at any one shot, you can really make leaps and bounds in your score and your positions every weekend just by paying attention and playing the numbers. They're playing it by the book. From a poker player goes, what does the book tell you to do right here? Then you do it. Don't take any chance. But you got to make up that book of yourself too. You got to spend the time.
For sure. Oh
and
yeah,
the energy level. Making that book about yourself.
You're the
So-
author.
Now, obviously, you want to take care of yourself while you're in the middle of the tournament play, but let's say on the Monday afterwards, what's your guilty pleasure food? What's your guilty pleasure snack? Are you an ice cream guy?
I am an ice cream
snacks?
guy. I'm a sweet
Okay.
guy. I have a little more sweet tooth than I like to admit. But I think as I get older, I've cut a lot of that stuff out of my diet. Those early days, I probably sitting in Wisconsin in the wintertime eating a lot of ice cream, which you probably shouldn't do, maybe in the summertime when you got the outdoors to go out there and do some stuff, but in the wintertime, ice cream is not good for you up in Wisconsin. But
Right.
yeah, I definitely like fruity things, rather than just candy. I like a fruity thing versus candy, but yeah, definitely a sweets guy. And Monday is just about recovering, whether you're on the road full time, trying to get to the next place, or trying to do laundry so you're ready for the next event, whatever the case is. But Monday is usually recovery and rest or travel. So, or get to know the family again. If you're, weekend warriors, I'm usually gone Thursday night through Sunday night. Monday morning is get reacquainted with the family again, kind of thing.
All of a
So
sudden the kid's grown and
right,
those 3 days,
So what's your beverage of choice?
I'll go boring and go water.
I'm in the water barrel too.
I would say probably 15 years ago, I cut out Mountain Dew. That was a guilty pleasure for me.
Right.
And I had cut out soda in general over the years, but over the last year or so, I'm drinking a little more now for caffeine, because I'm just not sleeping as much as I would like as a father of a 2.5-year-old. So
Right.
I'm doing that a little bit more, but it's water or, orange juice or grapefruit juice, pineapple juice, stuff.
That's
like
the crazy thing about those sodas and stuff. When you stop drinking them and then you have them every now and then, they sure work.
Yeah,
You
they
know,
sure do.
I mean, I pretty much only let myself do it on road trips, but
Yeah,
it's
I've only done the 5-hour energies or the pills a couple of times driving, and I just don't like what it does to my body. I don't like it. So,
Well, now one of the things that really, I know when people move locations, especially, I mean, I'm from Toronto. I am kind of afflicted with the Toronto pro sports teams, but we want to get into.
afflicted.
Well,
He didn't.
yeah, I mean,
He
you
didn't
gotta
say enamored. He
he
said
didn't say burden. At least he
afflicted.
didn't say burden.
choice of words was specific on that one. But in the same way that you come into the Frisbee family and you get to choose your family, what degree of latitude do you get to choose the sports teams that you like? I know you're probably NFL. Let's just start there. It's Green Bay,
Probably.
right?
Wait. Probably.
Probably. Yeah. I was varying degrees of Packer fan all my life growing up. I would say my teenager years, it kind of got a little bit stronger. And then obviously, as I got older, it got more intense. I'm connected a little bit to the Bucks as well. I'm not so much of a college sports guy, although I do like the Badgers. I don't follow them or anything like that or bleed red for them, but I do like them. Moving down here and having the family that I have now with my wife and her family. Her family has been season ticket holders for the Panthers since year 2. So they are quite the Panther fan. Her mother is called Panther Patty for a reason. She earned that moniker very, very quickly and easily. So I am also a Panther fan because I've gone
Oh, we know, Eric.
many games and I get watch
And
the
you
game.
guys do an out of town game every year too, right?
They do. They have done an out of town game every year as a couple. And I made them go to Green Bay a couple years ago when the Panthers went up there, and they got full ice experience. Their planes were delayed and stuff like that because of the ice storm that came in.
And you were like, "Oh, this is home."
They were, right. Sunday morning it started snowing, so they got the full Lambeau. It was fantastic. But the Packers come to Charlotte Christmas Eve this year, so I guess I'm going to a Packer game on Christmas Eve. I've been to one before, and it was difficult because I was both cheering and grumbling on every play. So it's like.
So are you wearing Packers gear?
What do you do?
Or do you have to like?
I wore neutral gear. I went to that game 2 years ago, 3 years
Just
ago.
wearing street
I didn't
clothes?
wear any. I didn't wear green and gold. I didn't wear black or blue. I think I
Just
wore
trying to
red.
preserve harmony in the household.
Whatever, but it was difficult because, like I said, I was happy and sad on each play. So it was difficult.
Now, what about Major League Baseball? Are you?
I found the further I get from my playing days, the less and less of a baseball player fan I am. I really enjoyed the pitcher, catcher, batter battle that goes on, those three, you can almost throw in the umpire in there because he's part of the battle. He sets the ground rules and can change things on a moment's notice. So I really enjoyed, I was pitcher, catcher, and shortstop when I played. So I really enjoyed that. And with technology now, you get to see the signals, you get to see the finger positions and the spin. It's absolutely fantastic to be a fan. I just don't have 3 or 4 hours to spare to watch. You know, I've given up a lot of things in my life over the years before the kid. Now after the kid, a lot more. Just I don't have the time to watch or to play or anything like that. Time is of the essence. So, you know, I'm disappointed I don't get to watch much basketball because I do enjoy basketball and I want to watch some of the best ever play the game. We've got 3 or 4 of the best ever to play the game playing right now. So I'd like to be able to watch them as much as I can, but you know, I just don't have the time to watch sports.
That's
So,
it. Now, before we,
no NHL team.
no NHL
I'm not
tomorrow?
connected. If I was connected, it would have been to the Milwaukee Admirals. I've been to maybe 15 of those games over the years and
Right
had a
on.
great time. You know, I much rather would watch hockey in person than on a screen. You don't get the full effect.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So, you know, I don't get the juice when I watch it on TV. I have to be there in person to
Let me
really
just
get the
add to
juice.
what you said there, Barry. You need to watch a hockey game with Mace.
Yeah,
Then you get the full
Yes.
experience.
We'll have to
yes.
dial up a Canes game and get like you and Robert Leonard and a few other people, and we'll get like a strip of 10 and or maybe 2 5s
Kraken loves some hockey too, and
and
he
get
lives right there
cracking.
too.
Yeah, Schwebby, and just
Yeah.
have a herd. And you know, Justin Jernigan and a bunch of those guys out there. Definitely.
Well, listen, Barry, we are stretching the bounds of our hour already, and I know you've got a bundle of energy that's about to break in chaotically into your
I'm surprised
private
she hasn't
sanctum
come down yet.
sanctorum there. But this might be a good way to end part one. You have been quite famous to be known as rocking the iPods, rocking the earbuds and the iPod. And you know, in part of my
Still rocking
research-
the iPod, not using
Still
my
ro-
still
that's an important
iPod.
distinction to make. It's all
Right.
about the iPod, not the iPhone.
Yeah.
And when I was looking, you know, just doing my due disclosure, some people, some of the chat lines out there were saying that you put the earbuds in, you're not listening to anything. It's just your way to avoid talking to people. And we know this isn't true
Right.
because you said on many occasions that you've actually become more chatty once you've got the earbuds in. Some have wondered, maybe, and I quote, based on the smoothness of his Annie, it's either classical or jazz music. And I thought that was a good one. I also watched the 2017 Tennessee State Championships, and the commentators there, one of them said, it must be Touch of Grey by Grateful Dead. And I didn't really understand that. Maybe it was
Was
a
I
jibe
starting
at
to get
the
a little
snow
bit
on the
here and
roof.
there
I
or
don't know. But we know that's not true because you've already said that it's Pink Floyd
Yes.
or
I
Roger.
mean, they're all
Waters.
kind of barking up the right tree. Nice, mellow, relaxing. I don't need a beat. I don't need energy. I
Yeah.
don't need something to fire me up. I have all that inside of me already. I need to not think about the golf. I
It's
don't
almost
need
like noise
distraction.
cancellation in a way.
Correct. I need distraction from myself and from the game. So I don't want to think about what I have done or what I need to do or what I'm going to do. You know, I want to stay in the moment, think about the next shot that I have coming up, and that's it. Or watch the birds. You know, a little more talkative. You know, I'm not going to have a 20-minute conversation with my card mate, but I'm going to talk a little more. If he wants to talk, I'll talk back. You know, but you know, I think I could get lost in myself a little bit before the buds.
Mm.
You know.
Yeah, you know what, I think that's one thing that's really interesting about music too, is that it really gives everybody gets something different from it. And
Right.
I had when I discovered music with my glass, it was the first day I got 2 pieces in the box on the same day. And it was because the music kind of keeps my ADD busy and it reminds me to come back to, hey, you know, because there's a point where you got rest and you set the pipe on the rod in the secondary heater or on the stand, and it's like, oh, okay, I don't have to hold this right now, and you can kind of take a break. And then I start thinking about, oh wait, and then I'd pull it up and melt it down, and the music would put me right back to the middle. It'd be like, oh, wait a minute, dude, you're not supposed to be wandering here. All right. And so my ADD would be working up here, and then I'd be down here paying attention, you know. And
well, full disclosure, I didn't just whimsically put the earphones in and start playing golf. You know, it took me, I probably bought 5 or 6 different sets of buds, trying to find the right that fit comfortably in the ear, that wouldn't fall out, that gave me the sound I wanted, that let me hear my people in my group talking as well, not just blocking out the sound. They don't want noise canceling earphones. I don't want that. You know, I
Right.
don't want not hear a 4 or did you
It's
see
really
where
easy
I
to
was
get
going and stuff like
disconnected
that, you
too.
know? So, you know, I didn't want the music to block me away from my car mates. So it didn't. You know, some people want that disconnection from their car mates, you know,
Right.
because they've been tricked or fooled before, but going down a mental alley that you don't want to go down, you know, having a discussion about rules that you don't want to talk about because you're trying to play some golf or something, you know, I totally get that. I understand that, but you still have to be part of the group. And then from a personal standpoint, I want people to want to play with me again. I don't want people to fear or hate playing with me. I want them to enjoy playing with me. So, you know, I may not be ultra talkative, but I'm not going to be unfriendly and be a douche because I want to be by myself. I got my earplugs and leave me alone. So it took me a while to find the earphones that worked for me. And then I went to the one earphone by accident because it just stopped working. And then when I went to replace the earphone, I couldn't find the double. They only had the single. So I'm like, all right, whatever. It's only one. It's fine. But I still got what I needed out of it. You know, it's still, I don't have it high volume or anything. And, you know, like I think I talk a little more, even if I don't talk a little more, the conversations that I have are a little more relaxed because I'm more relaxed. I'm
Mhm.
not short and blunt, you know, as well. So, you know, I think they helped me tremendously. And I was people gave me some hard times back in the early days of that, you know, I've heard they're gonna talk about getting rid of that stuff. You let me know the second they tell me I can't have my phone out here, you know, because that's basically what it is, an electronic device. And they're never gonna outlaw a phone out here. They're
Well,
never.
especially not with electronic scoring and everything. I
Right,
mean,
right.
and that's made so many improvements in the ease of operation, without a doubt.
Well,
So,
listen, we don't want to take up too much more of your time, Barry. I know you were kind of working on some borrowed time now with the
Well,
you're a
it's
young.
quiet. She might have gone down already, so we might be in the clear, but won't know until I get up there. Could be the
well,
quiet before the
so
storm.
we we could probably start this back up like 2 weeks before USDGC in
I saw some
September.
question marks on your schedule, so if you want to plop me in there, feel free.
And
Yeah, I
you know
think
we've already done the work, so we can any day that's convenient for you, we can schedule you, and we can do 3 in 1 week. We can double up another week or whatever, because
As long as I have more than one day notice, I can do whatever.
we got a lot of things that we want to talk to you about. We've just scratched the surface,
Yeah.
and you know, so far what we scratched has been amazing information, really great revelations. You know, I really love. For me, Mason, I started this because this was just a good way for us to stay in touch. And, you know, social media, virtual media, digital media has helped rekindle certain relationships. And look, you and I are talking. I haven't seen you in,
Right. I was thinking it's had
I
to
don't
be
know,
15 years at least,
15
right?
years. Yeah. So, you know, this is just one of the great things. And we can pick this up in a heartbeat whenever it's convenient for you. But we can't thank you enough for taking this time as it is already to just chat with us.
Well, thanks for all the work you guys put in. You know,
let's
it's obviously the way we're talking, the way we're flowing, you guys did a good amount of homework and you're getting what you want out of it. So good job.
let's target September 21st. It's a Thursday, and that's 2 weeks before USDGC, the first day of USDGC.
Okay.
Works for me. That's the night before the
September
OD Memorial.
21st.
Yep, it's a Thursday
Yes.
night.
I'm up in Wisconsin the weekend before that for a wedding.
Oh,
Ah,
nice,
nice.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Well,
we'll
thanks for
be,
stopping by, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the 21st of September, unless something else comes up. But I think that's it. We've got that week we have that we have Steve Valencia on Tuesday.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so digging it out from the way back. Talk to one of the original touring players on Tuesday.
And one of the original two-way players too, the counter spin and normal spin. You know, he did it righty and lefty, not righty and righty flick. You know, he did it a little bit differently than people are doing it now. But he was the originator of the double spinner right there.
wow.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Well,
Here we go. There's a 1 point of new homework for me.
We'll be
right?
digging in deep.
Point me in the right place. But yeah, no, thank you again. You're graceful with your time, you're graceful with your energy, and you look great. You really do.
Thanks.
I hope
Thanks. I'm
wish you
still
all
getting
the
used to
luck.
the glasses. It's been only a couple months with the glasses,
Well,
but
it's good. It makes you
getting
look, if ever you could look smarter than before, makes you look
It
that
makes
way.
you look like somebody's dad, dude.
right.
There you go. So all our best to your family and to you rehabbing this summer, getting ready for your return to the tour. You've played 31 or 32 years straight on the PDGA tour, so the PDGA and disc golf would not be the same without at least one appearance by Barry Schultz on the tour.
I will play multiple events this year. You know, somebody asked me, I don't remember who, but it was some event last year, like, how many years in a row have you won an event? I'm like, well, pretty much every year I've been in the PDGA, I think maybe, maybe the first year or two. Like, well, how about an open event? It's like, well, probably would be the same answer because I play open and masters every year. So if I want to keep that streak alive of winning an open event every year, I gotta get on the ball and play some events this
You're gonna
year.
have to cherry pick some C tiers or something.
Right,
Come on,
right,
man.
right. And there's like 3 or 13 C tiers in North Carolina every weekend. So, I just have to find one.
There you go.
Nice.
Find whichever one that Schwebe's not going to, okay?
Right. Well, he plays masters or grandmasters anyway. He won't play open. So I can still play open and try.
Right on. Well, Barry, thanks again. We look forward to seeing you down the road. And until then, just keep doing what you do. Spread the light, my friend.
It's great seeing you guys again, Mr. B. It's a great surprise to see you. I wasn't so sure who else was going to be there. And Mace Man, give everybody you see out there in Flagstaff a big hug for me. I miss them all.
Yeah, dude, I can't wait. That's really gonna be nice.
It's gonna be, I'm jealous for sure. And again, I'm not sure how much I'm gonna be able to watch just because it's gonna grind me a little bit that I'm not there, but I'm sure I'll be able to watch a little bit here and there just to see what's going on.
Yeah, right on, for sure. There's definitely, I went through the list the other day and I was just like looking at it going, oh, I'm gonna see, oh, I'm gonna see, oh, I'm gonna see,
Right,
and it's just,
right.
I've really, like I said earlier when we were talking about it, I've really been disappointed that I wasn't able to make this sooner.
And then,
I've
the
definitely
area,
been,
Flagstaff and Sedona is absolutely gorgeous.
yeah,
So
for
it's
sure,
like, yeah,
for sure. And I found, I guess because the algorithms or whatever, but I fall into the real hole every now and then on Instagram, and I found a couple places, found this one place that's really close. It's near Page,
okay,
and it's a short walk, and it's some of those wave ripples, not, it's, this one actually isn't ripples, it's
okay.
in the sandstone and stuff like that. And so man, dude, I've put in so many miles over the years just driving past stuff like that. I'm like, I got to get there. And this
Yes.
whole trip to Tacoma there's going to be some stops along the way at every turn, because I've never actually driven that far to the northwest.
Yeah.
I've
When you're
ridden
going
cars
across,
out there,
you're
but
going
I haven't
across
driven.
80 or 90 up there, there's going to be all kinds of things for you to stop. You'll have to stop at least once or twice and check out some things up there.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm definitely gonna hit some golf on the way back too. And Milo McIver, definitely gonna try to get that in on Thursday. So, and then whatever else I can. So, anyways,
Well, travel
definitely
safely out there,
pass the
buddy.
hugs around and grab some love while I'm out there in Flagstaff on Monday and Tuesday.
Especially my former partner, Sheila Kirkham, would be a nice.
Oh yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
get a hug and a kiss for me there.
Oh, she's definitely one of the people I'm gonna corral on the show too.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
and this is an official warning. I'm gonna be signing people up Monday and Tuesday next week for sure. A bunch of people that I don't have numbers for, and a
Right,
bunch of
right.
face-to-face, conversations about that for sure. So,
Awesome.
yeah, I know that list is pretty nice, but it's gonna continue to be that way too going forward.
Awesome. All right, well, take
So,
care, guys. Great seeing you
Okay,
again.
Barry. Thank you,
see
my
you again
man.
soon, buddy. Thanks a
Take
lot for
care,
stopping
buddy.
by.
Bye-bye.
Well, dude, we had way more people stop by than we have in the past, so that's pretty cool. And I really thought that was a good start. Yeah, Eric Dotson, you're definitely going to get a text message here in a little bit about Milo McIver, so plan on Thursday. Anyways, we got to 20 a couple of times on the live feed and all that, so that's really cool. And And ever since I put that poster up yesterday, I've definitely been getting some attention popping off. So
Nice.
we got a really good lineup coming up, folks, and this will be nice. We'll wrap up with Barry, and then the following Monday we'll wrap up with Harold. And I think then we got Barsby the next night, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if that's a week where we do 3 or 4 as well.
Well, I think it's this summer, I'm going to be lots of free time to be able to get the research done. And honestly, for me, I feel once I've got a good level of research done, it's easier with the guest and just, pile it on. I'm ready to go.
All right. Well, you heard it here first, folks. I'm piling it on.
Yeah, we got Nolan Grider coming up on Monday, so stay tuned for that.
And there's going to be a time change on that because of the players meeting starts at 6 p.m. Mountain Time. So, and that was when we were going to start with Nolan. So we're going to shift to the afternoon. Sorry, I didn't mention that to you, but I know since you're like off for the summer, I had a feeling you were going to be available.
We got nothing else to do.
We will, I'll post that here later this evening once we decide what's going to happen tonight officially. But I'm going to guess we're probably going to go around 4 o'clock Central Time, like 3 o'clock Mountain Time. I should have a hotel room by then, and I'll just pop into the room and get set up and we'll roll.
Cool.
And I talked with Nolan today, and Nolan's ready, so that's going to be good. He was tuned in a little bit tonight. We had a bunch of different people stop by: Eric McCabe, Eric Dotson, nice. Dan Harbeck, James Nichols, Dan Long, Brad Bishop, Skip Maxwell, Dennis Warson stopped by again this week. Roger Vranick, old friend Beth, Big Boss Beth, check this out a little bit. Dean's ex-wife. And
nice.
Yeah, so we had quite a few people stop by tonight, and we got 10 people on our mailing list. So we can send you the link directly if you want to send an email to brian.maceman@att.net and you want to get the link directly. When I publish them, I will send them out, and then somewhere in the range of an hour or 2 before the show, the day that it goes live, I will also send that link out again. So if you want to receive that from email, that's how it's going to go. We're still figuring this out, and we may change formats in the not too distant future. And as we get smarter about this summer, maybe we'll be up on some other formats too. So LeVon will stop by.
Nice.
Yeah, we got a nice group out there, and I really appreciate y'all, definitely. And that's probably a good time to wrap her up, isn't it?
Sounds good to me. That was a great show, great guest. I really enjoyed Barry. I think it was just wonderful, smooth flowing, really interesting stuff, and can't wait for that. You couldn't even call it the first half because that was only like the first third of the research. Well,
the funny thing too is that we got through some stuff in a pretty rapid fashion, and there's just some things that aren't going to go fast. There's some things that you can't glaze over, and so we're going to combine some stats information and kind of rearrange it a little bit. But I mean, we still got a lot of meat on that bone.
We still got a lot. Yeah, I mean, we didn't even finish the framework. People don't even know how impressive.
His first disc. We'll get to that.
Oh,
we'll get to that on the Eric Saylor. No, we didn't get to that. My buddy Eric Saylor mentioned that in the question, the Q&A. And we'll get to that. That'll come up next time.
It would be interesting.
I'm gonna be doing that show from the beach house, and I can't wait.
Nice.
Yeah, so those two that week at least, and whatever else pops up, will take place from the South Carolina beach right before USDGC practice week.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for having shown up and dropped in and hung out with us. It's fantastic to have these chats and have you guys kind of come in and come out whatever you want, just to listen in and hear what we're talking about, the stories we're trying to save and the stories we're trying to preserve for posterity. and the stories that need to be told. I mean, if you were just to look, say, for instance, at Barry Schultz's PDGA page, you would have no idea that he played virtually 10 years of unsanctioned events just in the state of Wisconsin.
That's crazy. I mean, that's,
Crazy.
you know, and I'm sure that all of us have played so many. I mean, I couldn't. People ask me, well, how many events have you ran? I go, sanctioned or unsanctioned, and I was like, a gajillion unsanctioned, and I don't
Yeah.
know. I mean, there's a record somewhere of the sanctioned events that I've run. I heard it was in a ranking of something, but I haven't ever looked it up. But I think I'm closing in on about 100 of them. I mean, there's been 22 Zebos opens.
100 sanctioned PDGA events.
I think I'm in that neighborhood. I'm definitely in the upper. If I'm not there, I can't be more than maybe 15 or 20 away from it. I'm sure I'm in the upper 80s at least. But I don't know. I don't know. I never really looked at that. You know, I know some people that, man, I got a friend from back in the day that he could tell you how many feature films he's been involved with and how many this he's done and how that. And I'm like going, man, I don't even have that shit written down.
I think I'm at about 100 events total between sanctioned and non-sanctioned. And, you know, part of it is just running the same event year after year after year. That's just, I mean, like you say, you got 22 years of Zebos. That's virtually a quarter of the way towards the Century Club.
This USCDC will be my 27th major to be on staff of. Well, 25 of them are at the same place. And, you know, it's not very hard to talk me into going to Rock Hill, South Carolina.
No, it's not.
I'm thinking about
All
it.
right.
Like,
Shall we cease the recording and streaming and
yeah, sure.
continue our conversation?
So everybody, Monday, let's say, so we start at 4 Mountain Time. That means 5 Central Time, 6 Eastern.
Yeah.
So let's say 3:30, because that way I for sure have time to get to the meeting. If we go 90 minutes with Nolan, I mean, it ain't gonna be hard. I've known him since he was 9. I mean, literally, I'm not lying. I've known him, like, he was my first second course, you know, my second favorite course, Fritz Park. I went and played that in the winter all the time, and that's where he grew up, like 3 houses down. And so I'm Big Brother Mike, his mom Nelda, who stopped by tonight, his dad James. Dan's the only one in that family that I don't know well. But I mean, Nolan and Mike are like my little brothers and have been forever. And so, like, I could still sneak out of work at like 4:30 on the short daylight days and blast down to Fritz and get 9 holes in. And then we'd always play what's called the Ziggy hole, and you go from hole 1 to hole 3 with 2 Mandos. And I remember the first time that Mike beat me on the Ziggy hole. Nelda came out the next day, their mom, and said, "Oh, you know what last night was?" And I go, "No, I don't have any idea." What, Tuesday night? And she goes, "No. It was the first time Mike beat you playing the Ziggy hole." And then I remember, 2, 3, 4 years later, Nolan beat me on the Ziggy hole, and same thing happened. Nelda came out, "Well, you know what happened last night, don't you?" And I go, "Shit, Nolan beat me for the first time on the Ziggy hole, didn't he?" And she just started laughing. And, and it was just one of those things. It's like, I never thought that I was the milestone or the yardstick until that happened. And,
Right.
and then I couldn't beat them little bastards anymore, But I will say this, Mike Grider, Barry talks about slow and smooth. I don't know if you've ever played with Big Brother Mike. Mike Grider is one of the smoothest people on the tee pad ever. His steps and his pace and his cadence and his delivery and that explosion at the end, it's just like, I think that on the tee pad still to this day a lot. I just want to be like Mike. I just want to be like Big Brother Mike, and be smooth on that tee pad, because he can crush. I mean, he's one of those guys that grew up playing the game, and so did Nolan, and that's why they're really good golfers. And it's I miss Big Brother Mike for sure. So it'll be fun to have Nolan on for sure. And then I'll just go soak up a bunch of Masters meeting love. So, all right, cool. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you on Monday, 3:30 Mountain Time, Monday afternoon. We're going live, and all this, I'll have this up no later than Saturday morning, depending on my technical difficulties, and they could be plenty. So, thanks again, folks.